Happy Friday and welcome into another edition of Mic'd Up here on Pittsburgh Sports Live and Pittsburgh Sports Now. I'm your host, Mike Asti, and I am joined by Mike Vukovcan. It's a baseball program here as we head into a weekend with some Pittsburgh Pirate talk, and this is a Pirates team that has still been riding high, has won multiple series on the year, and has certainly been the surprise of Pittsburgh. So we're both baseball guys. We certainly didn't expect this. We're going to talk wall-to-wall Pirates here on this Friday edition of the show. Of course, Mic'd Up is presented by Martin Lawn Services. Doug Martin can be called at 412-849-5894. I got my mug ready there, so there's my cup of joe as we head into the weekend with another victory by the Pittsburgh Pirates, another series win by the Pittsburgh Pirates, this one over Detroit, this one on the road against an American League team with the DH spot available. Ke'Bryan Hayes has yet to return, even though we touched on what the lineup could be like when he does return on the last few shows. That's still close to happening, but the Pirates have made some moves immaterial of that recently. In particular, Todd Frazier, who has been largely discussed the past few months, and not about anything he was doing on the field, but he joined the Pirates kind of surprisingly. He vocally said he didn't really want to be with the Pirates. He hung around, was okay in spring training. They then left him on the team. He then was off the team. Then he was back on the team. They let him test the value. And now all of a sudden he's been called up to the big club after not being called up after Ke'Bryan Hayes initially went down. That certainly created a little bit of a conversation with Phil Evans, who many thought would be the guy sent down, and Todd Frazier up originally when Ke'Bryan Hayes got hurt. Miguel Yajari got a start for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Mitch Keller actually pitched okay coming off of their last victory over Detroit. So, Mike, what have you made of the last 48 hours or so for the Pittsburgh Pirates? They are making some moves. It actually seems like some of these moves are about this season and not necessarily about the future of this team. They're still looking to get value for some veterans, but they're even helping this team. It's clearly a different mentality than they probably would have been expecting at this point, thinking the season was going nowhere. And it, mind you, still can. It's still likely to be a bad year overall where they're going to lose a lot of games. But right now, they're right there. They're right there flirting with 500. They've made some moves. Todd Frazier's now up with the big club. What have you made of these moves, and what do you expect out of Todd Frazier in particular?
Well, before I hit on Frazier, I liked the fact that they addressed their non-productivity out of center field.
Right.
Both Anthony Alford and Dustin Fowler started the season in a platoon at center field. We've talked about it every show we've done, talked about the Pirates on how those guys just weren't hitting, and they weren't doing anything to deserve staying in the major leagues. And it's nice to see that the Pirates, as you mentioned, weren't just going to put up with it and just say, okay, we're going to keep putting you out here. Right. They got rid of both of them. They designated both of them, which is going to create, a hole in the outfield. Although Brian Reynolds is going to move over to center field, Phil Evans is going to go over to left field for the time being. Mm-hmm. And, Polanco will be in right. But I still think the Pirates need to find another outfielder, but it's nice to see that they address that. Ke'Bryan Hayes, unfortunately, he re-aggravated that wrist injury, which means now that he's going to be out a little bit longer.
Right.
Which means, in turn, they're going to have to figure out what to do for their infield. And I imagine it's going to be a platoon of Todd Frazier at third base, with possibly Eric Gonzalez. Now, if I'm Derek Shelton, I would continue to put the hot guys out there, which means that Kevin Newman should be sitting the bench. He's not hitting as well as he should be hitting. Eric Gonzalez is. He's been him and Colin Moran have been the most clutch Pirates. I would be putting him at shortstop, and I'd be playing Todd Frazier at third base until his bat warrants him not being in the lineup.
And Todd Frazier, again, while his value has dissipated from where he was even a couple years ago as a guy who's been in home run derbies, has flirted with all-star appearances, has been an integral player in the middle of lineups on some good teams in the past, he hit 21 homers in the big club only a couple years ago. So you figure there's still maybe some power there, regardless of whether he initially wanted to be with the Pirates or not. I think these two teams realize they need each other. He needs to play with the Pirates here in the show and perform to keep his career going. And the Pirates now kind of need him to have some production, and maybe also, even if they don't end up with a winning season, which is still incredibly unlikely, be able to beef himself up and eventually get something out of him. Maybe they can get something out of him for a team that they will send him towards a pennant race, when initially it looked like he was just going to be thrown away and be forced to retire. So it could actually be a benefit to both sides of this. And it does look like that's going to be okay in terms of the outfield realignment with Reynolds being able to play center. Maybe you'd rather have him in a corner outfield spot, but it seems like he's athletic enough to do that. Yeah, they're going to have two Fraziers in this lineup. That's going to be interesting. Two guys with the last name Frazier. It does seem like Newman's that odd man out there, which is.
They need to find an outfielder, though, Mike. They need to find somehow.
They do need to find something else, right?
Yeah, they just need to. I don't know how, but they need another outfielder here, because I think you hit on this one of the last shows. Is that I think Phil Evans is starting to come back to who Phil Evans is. I think he
0 for 4. Last night.
I still think he can be I think he's suited best to be a bench player.
Sure.
Right now, he has to start for the Pirates. And that's why I believe they need an outfielder either in left or in right, because if I want to start looking at some future moves, I think the Pirates, I just think they should start looking at players that are going to be productive, and I think they'll draw some respect from the fans. Kevin Newman shouldn't be playing right now, and either should Gregory Polanco. They should
and at least they moved Newman to the 9 spot in the order, though. Yeah. He moved all the way from the top of the order all the way to 9. 1 for 4, I'm sorry, in their last game, and now hitting only 177 on the year. Todd Frazier going 0 for 4 in his debut with the Pirates, but of course there's still potential there. He's going to get some time. Gregory Polanco has been bad, to say the very least, now hitting 170, 1 for 4 against Detroit in that game last afternoon.
That experiment has to be over.
Yeah, soon it does have to be over. It feels like they're still going to give him some time. I'd imagine his rope is a little bit longer than Newman, just because of the price tag, and maybe they want to get something out of him. I don't see it being there, though. I'd rather even give Todd Frazier at bats, even though obviously they play different positions, than getting Polanco in there any further, even if this year doesn't really mean anything. And then, what I was bringing up with Phil Evans, he was hitting 326 when we were doing this show a week and a half ago. He's now hitting 274. It's not to say that's bad. If he hits 275 and cranks 20 homers, you want him in the lineup. But he wasn't expected to do this. Maybe that's for a reason. And he is coming back down to earth. He had a couple hits in a game a few nights ago, but now coming off of 0 for 4, he only had 1 hit last weekend all the way through those 3 games. We'll see what he does here coming up this weekend, but he's coming back down to earth. And Cole Moran has now emerged himself as the best hitter on this team overall, no longer him and Evans. And it is interesting how they handled the DH spot, though. Any thoughts on how they've been handling the DH spot? Because every single game, it has been handled differently. It is Moran, it has been Evans, it's Todd Frazier now. It doesn't seem like when they have a DH available, which will also occur against the Minnesota Twins, they necessarily have a guy they're going to fit in there. They're just trying anything.
Well, I think they're also trying to, they've played a lot of games. I know they had 2 off days, but I think this is Shelton's opportunity to get some guys off the field, maybe just get them up there to at bat, and just rest some legs. Right. And he's also, I think obviously you're going to want to keep your worst defensive player off the field in most cases, but I think it's most. I think he's just rotating guys just to give them a chance to get 4 at bats, and for the rest of the game, sit on the bench.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if Todd Frazier, if any of them get the bulk of being a DH, maybe in this upcoming series, I wouldn't be surprised if it is Todd Frazier, just because he's coming up to the big club now. He's clearly the most rusty, and maybe it'd be best for him to concentrate on just hitting, since, let's be honest, that's the only reason why you care about him, is if he can possibly hit and have some pop in his bat. He's not going to win a Gold Glove. So maybe he'd be the guy that would have the lion's share of the DH spot. You bring up defense, too, and I think this is very underrated, and I brought this up actually on a recent post-game show after a Pirate game. Not only has Gregory Polanco been struggling as a hitter for now a year and a half and hitting 170 this year, making some contact recently, but still not really nearly good enough as a hitter. He also has been struggling mightily defensively, and I don't think anyone's bringing that up enough. He made a horrible play the other night. He also is a liability defensively, so it's not even like this is like 2 years ago where when he wouldn't hit, he would be a gazelle out there. He seemingly has lost his athleticism. He's lost his defensive touch. He can't hit. He is not even the same guy that was there in 2018 anymore. So every way you touch it, he is really the worst option on the field. You have to wonder, Newman now leaving the lineup potentially. He goes to 9, so that's certainly writing on the wall that he might be sitting soon. If Polanco continues to linger and not hit and be horrible in the field, especially when they have all these decisions with Hayes returning, that would be something that I'd imagine the fans would be really irate over, because while this team is currently winning, that would then be a big screaming, we don't care about this year. And while this is not a year that many expected to win, you can't throw a white flag when you're right now flirting with 500 baseball.
Yeah, I don't think Sherrington will do that. I think he's going to continue to monitor the waiver wire. Unfortunately, that's the way it's going to go, or possibly make a trade. They picked up a guy the other day, 2 days ago, from the Oakland A's off the Rule 5, former Rule 5 pick. Oakland got rid of him. He's had some major league experience, so I think he might get a shot maybe in center field. Maybe things will move around with Reynolds and Evans back in there. He'll get a shot. But I don't think Sherrington's done as far as looking to acquire more talent for the team, specifically in that outfield. It
has to be in the outfield. Now you have to now.
Yeah, it's too bad the minor league system isn't up as far as games going, because you get a guy, you get to see who's playing well, maybe a AAA and deserve a call up.
Right.
That's hopefully going to start here in the next couple weeks or so, and then they'll get a chance to see that. But I think anytime you see something happening as far as guys getting released or designated, the Pirates will be a candidate to pick somebody up, especially if it's an outfielder.
It does also seem like Ben Cherington is willing to wheel and deal, regardless of whether they be at the beginning of the rebuilding or at the end of the rebuilding. He is not a man that sits on his laurels and stands pat. So you're seeing this lineup moved around constantly, which of course goes to Derek Shelton as a manager, maybe with Ben Cherington's direction. You're seeing moves be made. You're seeing players leave this lineup. You're seeing some culpability that if you're going to suck, they sat Polanco a week or so ago. He then started hitting, and now he's still not hitting again. So will they sit him again? And how this is handled when Hayes returns is all going to be the question here. Of course, this is Mic'd Up, presented by Martin Lawn Services. That number behind Mike V at 412-849-5894. And Mike, as we head into the weekend, it's another series for the Pirates. It's one more against an American League team on the road. So we do have this DH spot available that we just discussed. But what have you been mostly surprised by this team? What has surprised you the most? I mean, obviously they've won some games more than what anybody expected, but it just anything with an individual player, anything overall even that has surprised you for this team. Mitch Keller actually pitched okay. Maybe he has saved himself in that last start, but what surprised you the most out of this Pirates season so far that has not been nearly as bad as many would have thought?
Well, I thought at the beginning of the season, we talked about it here. I thought the bullpen was going to be their strength. And while I thought it was going to be a strength, I didn't think it was going to be this good.
Yeah, it's been good.
They are really good.
Yeah.
Really good. And when you have a bullpen this deep and that good, that just shortens the game for you. Your starters you don't need to risk keeping a starter out there if he's not doing well. And you also know that if your starter can just keep you in the game, you're going to have a good chance to win. Right now, there's not a better relief closer in base. There's not a better 8th, 9th inning setup closer role than Kyle Crick and Rodriguez. Both of them haven't allowed runs this season. They're rated as two of the 4 best pitchers in baseball at relief right now. They're just unhittable. Obviously, that's not going to last.
Right.
But the way they're pitching right now, another acquisition from Sherrington, it's been kind of under maybe played a little bit. I think this guy might have the potential as a future starter. Dwayne Underwood, every time he comes in out of the Pirate bullpen in the 6th or 7th inning, he's lights out. Pitched well today. Bednar has been good, and Sam Howard. They just have a lot of power arms out there. They have a lot of guys that are getting it done. And to me, I knew they were going to be, I didn't know, but I suspected that they would be good. But right now they're great, the bullpen. Well, hopefully that can continue for them, because when you have an eighth, going
they
back
need to be
Pirate
good.
Days.
Right.
Yeah, going back to the Pirate days when they were good with Hurdle, when they were in the playoffs. Once you got to that 8th with the Shark Tank, once you got to the 8th and 9th inning, you knew it was over with that team. And you're starting to get that feeling a little bit with this Pirate team. And I hate to bring this up, but when you have guys that are that good right now, you come July or June or July and the trade deadline comes, valuable relief pitchers are definitely guys that can get shocked.
Yeah, the relief pitching is what teams that are looking for a deep postseason run covet more than almost anything. Those are reasonable pieces that teams can add. And I'd imagine Howard, many other pieces, Rodriguez, etc., could be shipped out if they keep this up. They've needed to be this good. We talk about the offense so much, and the offense has been overall good enough, even though there's been some weak spots with Newman and Polanco. This team wouldn't be where it is win-loss record if it was not for the bullpen, because bear in mind, the starters have been overall not good enough, with the exception of Brubaker and maybe a few other starts here or there, Tyler Anderson too. And some starts, like Chad Kuhl in particular, are going 3 and 4 innings and that's it. And the bullpen having to come in very early in these games and then pitch adequately enough to either save the game, to continue the game on, not ruin the game at the very least. So that's been a big part of this team for sure. I think most people predicted the bullpen to be good, but the bullpen's arguably been the most consistent part of this team, even including the offense. And if the bullpen was not doing this team, it doesn't matter what the offense was doing or what Brian Reynolds was doing, especially with Hayes out, this team would not be nearly where it is. Normally in any team in the league, if your starter goes 3 1/4 innings and gives up a few runs, you're usually not winning those games. They managed to win a game that Chad Kuhl only went 3 1/4 because the bullpen came in and outpitched the starter, who was still in for a couple innings. That's incredible.
This is winning 8 out of the last 12 games. And over these last 9 games, the combined ERA of their bullpen is 1.09.
Wow. I didn't have that in front of me. That's incredible. Yeah.
Last night, when people just aren't hitting them, and that it's no coincidence that the last, they've won 8 out of the last 12. Their last 9, you get a 1.09 out of your bullpen. That's you're just asking. You're asking your starter not to suck.
Yeah, and that has happened where the starter has still sucked, but the bullpen has saved the day quite literally at times, and I don't think you can realistically expect anything more from this Pirates bullpen. You could say you expect more from certain members of the lineup and to hit more. You can't expect much more from this bullpen. You certainly can expect more from some of the starters. This is an interesting Pirate season. I think many thought this would be a boring year. People would kind of throw away. They would lose 100 games. It wouldn't matter. People would dip out and talk about the draft and Steelers well before they normally would, and not that that's not getting play as well. But they're interesting. They're intriguing. They're winning more than they're losing recently. And there's some decisions, especially when Ke'Bryan Hayes returns, that are going to be very impactful. We'll see how they do when he gets back. I've said this too jokingly on some shows, that watch them kind of take a dip and start losing once he returns, just because that's the Pirate way. So I'm still expecting that. But this team has been fun to watch, dare I say. And I don't mean from an asinine perspective. They've actually been fun to watch. Brian Reynolds in particular, many others, Colin Moran, even Evans for a while, and certainly J.D. Brubaker with an ERA of below 2. He's been one of the better starters in all of baseball. Howard and company from the pen as well. And Bednar from Mars, PA, has been a great reliever as well. So that's going to do it for this edition of the show as we head into the weekend. Another series for the Pirates, maybe another series win for the Pirates. They're stacking series victories, as insane as that sounds, and we will see if we get some answers to these questions either through this weekend or headed into next week, as this team is still winning and coming off a victory as we speak. For Mike Vukovcan, for all of us here at Pittsburgh Sports Live and Pittsburgh Sports Now, I want to remind you, of course, to call Doug Martin for all your lawn care needs. Martin Lawn Services, 412-849-5894. I'm Mike Asti, and that is it. Enjoy your weekend. Maybe we'll get some warmer weather, but either way, watch some Pirate baseball while it's fun, because right now it still is.